Welcome to the Elite Realty Group Podcast, where you receive the most up-to-date, relevant real estate information anywhere on the planet. Whether you're buying, selling, investing, or simply trying to understand today's real estate market, you're in the right place. And now, let's get you to the Elite Realty Group Podcast. Most people think they know what a realtor does. You put a sign in the yard, you put the house online, you schedule some showings, eventually somebody writes an offer, and everybody meets at closing and we all go home happy. But here's what I want to show you today. I want to show you the part of a real estate transaction you see may only be a fraction of what's actually happening. There are phone calls you never hear, problems you may never know existed, deadlines being watched by everybody, documents being reviewed, people coordinating behind the scenes, negotiations taking place, lenders, title companies, inspectors, appraisers, attorneys, agents, and brokers all touching different pieces of the same transaction. And sometimes the best real estate work is the work the client never even realizes had to happen. So today I'm going to take you behind the curtain. Whether you're buying or selling a home in Morristown, Tennessee, Hamlin County, or honestly anywhere in the Lakeway area, I'm going to walk you through what is actually happening from the moment you hire a real estate professional until somebody hands over a set of keys. And my goal is by the end of this, I think you'll understand why choosing the right person is much more than choosing somebody who can just unlock a door or put a property on the internet. I think this will be some information that you really benefit from. So let's get started. And let's start with a seller. So imagine someone in Morristown decides that we're ready to sell the house. We're ready to sell. Most people think the first major event is putting the house online. And honestly, it shouldn't be. Before marketing ever happens, there needs to be a strategy. What is the property? What does the local competition look like? What price range are we entering? What condition is the home in? Are there obvious issues that need attention in this home? What are the seller's priorities? Is maximizing price most important? Speed, convenience? Do they need to sell before they buy something else? Are there timing issues we got to work through? That's why two sellers with almost identical houses, they could need completely different strategies. Now, imagine two neighboring homeowners for a minute. Same subdivision, similar houses. One is relocating for a job that needs certainty very quickly. The other says this, look, I'll move if somebody pays me enough, but I'm perfectly happy staying where I am. I'm in no hurry here. Same neighborhood, similar property, completely different motivation. Therefore, y'all, potentially a completely different strategy. The first job isn't selling the house. It's understanding the seller's situation. And you got to know exactly what each seller's situation is. Now, let's look at the second part of this. So a lot of people, consumers, they see the properties listed on Facebook. They see this. Behind all of those pictures that's been taken, there's been paperwork, there's been photography, been descriptions, been showing instructions, marketing decisions, document preparation, communication with the seller, coordination with several other people that will be touching this transaction. Then somebody has to make sure that the information that's being presented to the public, that it's accurate, because that matters. Marketing a property isn't merely about making something look good. Good real estate marketing has to make something look good without actually misrepresenting what it is. You got to show people exactly what you have. But once that property becomes active, then we got a buyer that wants to see it. That sounds pretty simple, right? Totally simple. Sometimes it is. But think about what may happen here. The buyer contacts their agent. The agent requests a showing. The seller needs notice. Pets may need to be handled. Occupants in the home may need to leave. Showing instructions have to be followed. Access, getting in the property, that's all got to be coordinated. Then afterwards, somebody hopefully follows up with all of that. What did the buyer think about the property? Was the price an issue, the condition, the layout of the home? Was there genuine interest from this buyer? This is one reason communication and systems matter so much inside a real estate company. Consumers often evaluate agents based upon personality, and I totally understand that. But behind personality, there needs to be a process, because eventually a transaction creates enough moving pieces that memory isn't a system. Now, look, an offer on a property is more than just a price. This is one of the biggest misconceptions. So sellers get an offer. What did they offer? We got to know that, right? Obviously, the price matters, but an offer is an entire package: financing, closing date, contingencies, requested concessions, personal property, deadlines, possession, inspections, provisions, potential sale of a home, contingencies, and all other terms. So imagine this. Offer A is $400,000. Offer B, $395,000. Which is the better offer? Which is the better offer there? You can't answer that from just those two numbers. And that's the point. A professional's job isn't merely, here's the offer, figure it out the best you can, cipher through it. It's helping the client understand, here's what this offer actually means. The decision, at the end of the day, hear me on this, it still belongs to the client. Our job is to help them make an informed decision. And just because they accept an offer, that doesn't mean we're finished. People just celebrate when a contract gets accepted, and honestly, they should. But in many transactions, acceptance is nowhere near the finish line. It's actually the starting gun. Now, once that acceptance happened, multiple timelines start. Earnest money, inspections, title work, appraisers, repairs and negotiations, lender requirements, document deadlines, closing preparation. This is where the pros earn a lot of their value. Think about this for a minute. An airplane. Passengers don't want to know every adjustment happening in the cockpit of this plane. They want the professionals up front, and they want them paying attention. Real estate can be similar to that. Clients shouldn't have to personally manage every moving part of this transaction, but somebody needs to know that those parts exist. And once things start moving, we've got things like inspections, and that can change the emotional temperature of the whole thing. Because before the inspection begins, we love this house. But after reading a long inspection report, this is what they're thinking: this house is falling apart. And sometimes neither reaction there is completely the accurate reaction. Homes are physical structures. Inspectors often identify numerous items. Some may be important, some may be maintenance, some may deserve further evaluation by the appropriate professional. The real estate professional shouldn't suddenly pretend to be the electrician, the plumber, the HVAC technician. The role of the real estate professional is help keeping the process organized and begin getting the appropriate expertise lined up when needed. Good leaders don't need to be the smartest people in the room every time. They need to know when the right person needs to enter the room. And sometimes that can be many people. Once we get through the inspections, we've got an appraisal, and sometimes that raises a total different question. The inspection on the house is generally examining the property's condition for a buyer, but the appraisal is generally connected to evaluation for the lender. Different professional, different purpose, different question. And if an appraisal creates an issue, the transaction may need another round of problem solving depending on the contract and the financing terms. Now, again, accepted offer does not mean everyone simply waits for closing day. There's more to it. We've got the inspection, we've got the appraisal, then we're going to talk about the lender. They may be running a parallel transaction while the real estate side's happening. The lender may be working through many things like income, assets, credit, employment, underwriting, property requirements, appraisal, loan conditions, documentation of everything that needs to happen. And that's why buyers should be extremely careful about making major financial changes during a transaction without first discussing them with their lender. New debt, major purposes, employment changes. Moving money around without explanation, that's not a good thing. The lender isn't trying to ruin everybody's fun. They're trying to get a loan approved under specific requirements specific to that loan. And until you own the house, boring finances can be beautiful finances. Once we get all that lined up, we're going to title work. And all that's happening at the same time, too. We got another group in here, another group of pros that are doing work that most consumers never see. What's the ownership history? Any liens, legal descriptions, payoffs on the property, closing documents, settlement figures, coordinating all these moving parts. And depending upon the transaction, issues appear that nobody expected. The important part isn't memorizing every step. It's understanding that your realtor isn't operating alone through this. Real estate is a team sport. And the quality of communication among the different people involved can matter tremendously whether this thing ever gets to closing. Now, something you probably do in this transaction isn't going to go as everything planned. Maybe an inspection raises a question. Maybe an appraisal, it creates an issue. Maybe a document's missing. Something's not there. Maybe closing needs adjusting, the date. Maybe somebody misunderstands something along the way. Maybe there's a repair not completed when it's expected that it should be done. Listen, not every transaction becomes this big dramatic thing, but expecting perfection is literally unrealistic. The mark of a great transaction isn't necessarily that nothing went wrong. Sometimes it's that something that went wrong and competent people knew how to respond to what it was went wrong. You don't judge a system only by whether it encounters problems. You judge it partly by what happens when the problem arrives. And the brokerage behind all of that, the agent behind that, they matter. This is where I can speak from my actual seat that I sit in every day. I'm not actively out trying to personally sell houses every day. That's not what I do. I own and lead a real estate company. My responsibility is bigger than one transaction. I think about training, systems, compliance, agent support, technology, culture, accountability, problem solving, and what happens when an agent does need help in a transaction. Consumers usually select an individual realtor, and that is 100% understandable. But behind the realtor is or should be an organization that's supporting their work. That's one of the things we continue working to strengthen at Elite Realty Group. It's not perfection, but it's support. Because eventually every professional encounters something that they haven't seen before. That includes me. And when that happens, I want our agents to have somewhere to turn to be able to get the answers. And that's why the best transactions can sometimes feel uneventful. Here's the irony of all that. A client might finish closing and say, that was easier than I expected. And I honestly consider that a compliment because perhaps dozens of things happened behind the scenes that the client never knew anything about, but they didn't have to carry all of that weight. Great service often makes difficult things feel simple. Simple doesn't mean that no work occurred, nothing went wrong, something happened. Sometimes simply it means somebody else did a lot of work correctly. They got it done. So the next time you see a realtor, put a sign in the yard. Don't assume the sign is the job. The sign is the part that everybody sees. Behind it, though, may be strategy, marketing, communications, negotiation, coordination, documentation, problem solving, deadlines, relationships, and an entire network of pros trying to move one transaction toward the finish line. If you're buying or selling a home in Morristown, Tennessee, Hamlin County, or anywhere in the Lakeway area, I don't think the most important question is who can show me a house? Or I don't think it's who can put my house online. But I think the better question may be this: who do I trust to help me navigate everything that happens after those things happen? Because eventually the photograph gets taken, the sign does go up, the offer arrives, and then that's when the real work begins. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mike Elkins, broker, owner of Elite Realty Group, and this is the Elite Realty Group Podcast, where you receive the most up-to-date, relevant real estate information anywhere on the planet. Now, before watching this episode, what part of a real estate transaction did you not realize happened behind the scenes? Put that in the comments for me. And if you know somebody thinking about buying, selling, investing in Morristown, Hamilton County, or anywhere in the Lakeway area, share this episode with them, okay? Share it with them. Here's your 3 key takeaways. First, a realtor's visible work, it's only part of the job that a realtor does. Much of the value occurs through preparation, communication, coordination, negotiation, and problem solving that happens oftentimes behind the scenes. Second, an accepted offer is literally just the beginning of the process. It doesn't end at the exception. Inspections, financing, appraisal, title deadlines, and closing coordination, they all got to come together. And third, great service makes complexity feel very simple. Consumers should evaluate not only an individual agent's personality or marketing, but the systems, expertise, and support surrounding that professional. Thank you guys for joining me on today's podcast, the Elite Realty Group Podcast, where you receive the most up-to-date, relevant real estate information anywhere on the planet. You guys be safe and be blessed. I'll see you on an upcoming episode. Thanks for listening to the Elite Realty Group Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share the podcast with someone who could benefit from the information. We appreciate you being part of our audience. Until next time, this has been the Elite Realty Group Podcast.